Hey, what's going on, guys? So for today's video, a little bit more of an introduction just to let you know what the plan is for this review. This is the real grade RX-78-2 Gundam. That's right, we're going all the way back to the very first real grade from the line, all the way back to 2010 was when this kit released. Now you may think, all the way back to 2010, that's not that long ago, 13 years ago. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, not really all that long in terms of Gunpla. And yeah, the real grade line hasn't really been around all that long, but unfortunately, the term of early real grade syndrome has unfortunately really kind of caught on. You hear a lot online if you guys spend a lot of time looking at Gunpla and especially Gunpla reviews online. You've probably heard this phrase. I, in particular, really don't like this phrase, and I think that it's very much overused. I get what the phrase generally means. Early real grade syndrome, basically referring to how finicky maybe some of the earlier real grades can be in the line, with parts falling off or joints not working well, or I don't know exactly what people are referring to when they say it. I think it's just one of those things that people just kind of say, but it's interesting that we don't have early high grade syndrome or early master grade syndrome, because if you look at any line of Gunpla, this is not only true for real grades, but any line of Gunpla, there's certainly been a lot of dramatic changes over the years. Real grade is actually one of the youngest lines, so it's not actually really changed that particularly much. I feel like obviously there's been, like, the biggest change would be in the more recent kits. It doesn't have the full pre-molded inner frame like it had, which was kind of a staple of a lot of the early real grades. But basically what I want to do in this video is take a look back at the RX-78-2, which I feel like is one that people certainly point to quite a lot as being a particularly bad real grade. I've built this twice, but that was like when it first came out a long time ago, before I was doing anything on YouTube. I don't remember having any bad experiences with it, so I don't think it's that bad, but I'm gonna build it again and let you guys know what I think. And I think I'm going to assume that we're going to kind of dispel the whole early real grade syndrome phrase as being a little bit just kind of overblown, but I don't know, we'll see. Maybe it's worse than I remember. We'll find out in today's video. Let's go ahead and get to it. All right, so we don't need to spend a whole lot of time taking a look at the box and everything around on the outside of the box, but it's a typical real grade style box. It all started here with the close-up of the Gundam's face and then the full image of the Gundam over here. The CG render images here for the box art of the real grade line, always very easily recognizable and look very cool. On the side of the box, this is 01 in the line, and on the bottom of the box there's another look at the close-up of the Gundam's face. Only Japanese here in this case. This is before we had any English on the boxes of the manual, so there's a look at the completed skeleton frame there, and about the advanced MS joint system, which was very new, not completely new at this point, but certainly in this scale. There's about the core fighter, the decals, and some of the decals there on the kit, and a look at the kit just built up and decaled straight out of the box without anything extra done on it. How that looks, again, that's another kind of staple of the RG line, is that they're made to look really good straight out of the box. That's one of the reasons why they have that multicolor system, so like the white is not all pure white. We have a couple different tones of white here just for this particular example, but here's a couple of images of the kit posed up in some kind of classic Gundam poses there, showing off some of the weapons and accessories. And with that, let's go ahead and pop the top. Now, one thing that's, I think, maybe different about this release, and maybe you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, the real grade kits all used to have artwork on the lower part of the box, which is now just in this plain cardboard, as you can see, but as if I remember, they all used to have artwork here on the inside as well, and I'm wondering when exactly that disappeared. We'll take a look at all of the runners in just a moment. Here is our instruction manual with a close-up look of the Gundam's face, the titling down there at the bottom. On the back side, just the RG logo there. On the inside here, nice big image of the Gundam with some details about some of the different aspects of the kit, the advanced MS joint, the core fighter there at the top, the realistic decals, the color split parts, the gates, everything on here. So on the next page, we've got the parts list, and inside here, we are also going to have, aside from just all of our construction, which is all laid out very nice and clearly for us with, it's mostly black and white, but as you can see, there's a little bit of color coding here. Important parts are highlighted in pink, so that makes it easy for you to pick out those sections of the build. And then on the centerfold pages here, we've got a bunch of images and information here, including images, stills from the anime, and a whole bunch of really cool stuff there. We've got more information about the 1.0 advice. I was gonna say 1-point technique is what it's usually called, but 1-point advice here, just about panel lining and top coating, just to see the difference between the kit before and after top coat there. For example, we've got the color chart over here as well. That is all in Japanese, but pretty simple to figure out the standard Gundam colors. And then a color guide there for our tiny little 1/44 scale Amuro pilot figure included as well. Continuing on with the manual, it's just the rest of the construction here to the core fighter all the way at the very end. On the last page is our decal guide, where all the decals are going to be placed around on the main kit and accessories and everything, and that's it for the manual. All right, before we get into the runners, then we do also of course have the classic real grade decal sheet here. These are available as water slides, sold separately if you want to get those, and I would highly recommend that. These look okay on the kit. You can see these are printed in mostly gray, white, and pink, and especially on the white plastic, they're going to look fine, but on some of the other colored plastic, they're not going to look quite as nice. Some of these metallic ones are going to go around in on the frame areas, and those can look kind of okay too. Runner A here is going to be molded in 4 colors, yellow across the bottom for all of our yellow parts there, in this kind of light tan cream kind of color there for one of our kind of white sections. We've got our beam saber effect parts up here in a kind of clear pinkish red, and then some plain clear over here for a couple of parts as well. Runner B is our advanced MS joint. This is advanced MS joint 1, and this is in 2 colors of gray. We've got like dark gray and darker gray for the 2 colors here. Interestingly, runner C is also a 4-color runner, one of the few times where we have multiple 4-color runners in a kit. This one is in a kind of dark red for the main color, some darker blue, some lighter blue over here, and then a lighter red, a couple of parts in a lighter kind of desaturated red color right there at the bottom. And then for all of our white armor here on runner D1 and then D2, which is a copy of this middle section right here, this is all of the armor that's in a kind of pure white. We also have our standing Amuro Ray pilot figure right there on the runner as well. And then runners E1 and E2, which is a copy of this section of the runner right here, is again in an off-white. Now different from the off-white that we saw on the A runner. So basically we have pure white, off-white, and then a kind of light tan, which is what is on the A runner for our white colored armor. And then we have runners F, G, and H, which are all of the mechanical parts and weapons parts, so parts that we're going to add onto the MS joint, advanced MS joint, for like building out the frame. Interesting thing about these is that each one of these runners is also a different color. So runner F is like a dark brownish gray color, runner G is just like a plain dark gray, and then runner H is an even darker gray. So again, it's going to match like the advanced MS joint, made up of 2 different colors of dark gray, basically, is like what we have here on the G and H runner. That's it for all of the runners. Let's go ahead and get it put together and see how it holds up. Alright guys, so here is the kit all built up, very nice, and quite interestingly, in the time between unboxing and building the kit and now sitting down to do the review portion of the video, we had the announcement of the Real Grade 2.0 RX-78-2 that's going to be coming out later this year, so that kind of puts this whole review in a little bit different context now with that consideration. So we're going to be going through the accessories, talking some more about the kit, what are some pros and cons of the kit now that I've built it up, now that I've kind of refreshed my memory, like I said, because I have built the kit before, but that was a long time ago, and now that I've built it with my aged eyes, with being a Gunpla builder with a lot more experience now from then to now, how do I think the kit really holds up, and what are going to be some of the problem areas to look out for, and is this kit still worth picking up considering that we're getting the 2.0 that's going to be out as the 40th kit in the line. So between the first kit in the line and the 40th kit in the line, obviously there's going to be a lot of changes, but let's go ahead and take a closer look here at the 1.0, we can call it now. So first up, for our accessories, we have these fixed pose closed fist hands, which I definitely prefer the fixed pose hands, but of course we do also have the articulated hands. If you want to have the kit actually holding on to the weapons or in some sort of open hand pose, this is what you'll have to use for this. And as you can see, these are very unique in that the thumb is on a ball joint at the base and has a point of articulation in that. The first finger has a ball joint at the base and has a point of articulation, and then the second, third, and fourth fingers are connected, but only sharing one single ball joint, so it's very odd. Typically on like a master grade hand, when you have similar hands like this, there'll be 2 or 3 ball joints that the fingers are connected onto, but this makes the second, third, and fourth fingers on this odd weird ball joint like that. The hands work pretty well, and I'm kind of like overhyping my disapproval for these hands, and they work kind of fine. It's just that I definitely prefer the fixed pose hands. Just less moving parts means less opportunity for anything to break on you. Now the other thing is that these hands do also have a joint at the wrist, so you're able to bend this part right here at the base of the wrist, which does give you more articulation in the wrist, which is nice. And then we've got our core fighter. Now there is a like dummy core fighter that you have in there in the kit. You can actually fold up this core fighter and actually put it into there if you want, so it's kind of up to you, but I feel like if you've got the dummy one, you might as well put that in the kit because you're never going to see it, and then you can have this out as a separate thing. Now, a couple things about this core fighter: it's janky. It's very janky. You have the landing gear at the bottom, and you might think that these holes in the back are the right size for you to be able to plug this onto an action base to have it actually flying in the air if you did want to omit the landing gear, but you'd be wrong in that. Those holes are, I think they're smaller than 3mm. I tried it out. They don't fit on an action base, so they're probably more like 2mm or 2.5 anyway, not quite big enough. You could certainly just scratch build some sort of connection to put this up onto an action base if you wanted to have it actually flying. But like if you take a look up close, the cockpit hatch does actually open up, and there is a tiny little seat inside there. And yeah, like I said, it is fully transformable in that the wings fold up, the tail fin here at the back kind of folds up and in. But as you can see, it's just kind of like everything's floppy on it, and it's just like all about to fall apart. So if you wanted to have this out and displayed, I would recommend just gluing some of these parts. Whether you're planning on painting or not, at some point you're going to want to glue these parts just to not have to fool around with this. Now, it looks great. The detail on it is really nice, and that's going to be an overall theme that I think you're going to see carried out throughout the rest of this kit. A little bit overly complicated, a little bit janky. It looks great, but you're probably going to want to glue a few things. On that note, we do have a very interesting action-based connector here, which for some reason it doesn't plug up underneath the hip section as normal. It plugs in here onto the back, where you can open this hatch right here, and that second hatch, now again, like I said, it's overly complicated for its own good, and that's something that I'm going to touch on kind of throughout this review, and especially towards the end in kind of my final commentary. But yeah, that opens up with a double hatch there, and you can plug the action-based connector into there. Now you'll notice this is also the spot where you should be plugging in the Hyper Bazooka. So yes, that means you can't put both in at the same time, which is very odd. And our Hyper Bazooka itself is, again, really nicely detailed. All the parts, all the details, the color separation here. The front handle moves up and down like that, so you can get this up over the shoulder. The handle has a little fold-out peg here for a more secure connection into the hand. The beam rifle and beam sabers also have that, as you'll see. But yeah, this is the connection peg to plug this onto the back skirt. And overall, yeah, very nicely detailed here. Pretty simple Hyper Bazooka. As for the beam rifle, this one also has the peg in the handle, which will fold out. The secondary handle here will move side to side. The camera at the top will also move side to side. And then this has a peg over here on this side for storage on the back of the shield. And now that's going to store right up into there by plugging onto the back of the shield like so. Now you can also plug the beam saber handles into the back of the shield here for some reason, even though the RX-78-2's beam sabers are of course famously stored here on the backpack. I don't know why there's even an option to store them on the back side of the shield, but the option is there for you. We'll come back to that in a second. Real quick, here on the shield there's a connection peg for plugging this onto the back side of the arm or onto the back of the backpack if you prefer, and then there's the handle which will fold out like that you can use with the articulated hand if you want, or just leave it flat like that. And then this whole connection system will also slide up and down on the back side of the shield. On the front side of the shield here, again, nice detail, nice color separation here with the two-tone red. It does look pretty good, pretty standard Gundam shield with lots of detail here on the back side as well. Now going back to the beam sabers, I mentioned that the beam saber handles are meant to be stored on the backpack. We do have another set here, and these are ones which have that peg extended. So it's not a moving peg like on the beam rifle and the bazooka where you can fold that peg out. It's either out like you have on these handles or in like you have on these handles, so where they don't have that peg sticking out. So I mean, you can use those. These ones obviously you're probably not going to want to use on the backpack because they have a peg sticking out the side. You could cut that peg off, I suppose, stick these on the backpack, and stick these ones with that attachment point on them on the back side of the shield, I guess is an option, something that you could do anyway. But yeah, if you're planning on using the beam sabers in hand, you can use these with the peg sticking out there, and there you've got your clear pink beam saber effect parts, which are very nice, quite long too. If you look at this compared with the kit itself, you can see including the handle, it's going to be much longer. I think that just the beam effect itself is probably taller than the Gundam itself. Yeah, so there you can see the beam effect part is about the same height as the Gundam, if not slightly taller. And that's it for our accessories. Basically all the standard accessories that you would expect for an RX-78-2, minus some of the added extras like the Gundam hammer, or like maybe a revolving launcher for the beam rifle, something like that. Some of these other extras which we've seen in like different versions of the Master Grade, for example, example. Different versions of the 144 scale kit, I suppose, too, but all your basics are covered and they work really pretty well, I should say. As for the kit itself, now, yes, there's going to be a lot of little moving parts, and everything on this, again, like I said, in the construction of this kit, I couldn't help but feel like Bandai was just trying to do too much with this kit, making everything move, and is very ambitious. It's a very ambitious project, and I think it works pretty well. But here, as you can see, parts are going to be falling off, and that's what I was just mentioning a moment ago. You're probably going to want to glue, if you have little parts in this, especially non-moving parts, just glue them on. If you're finding that you have parts falling off, just glue it on, and it's really not that big a deal. But it's certainly a kit that you have to be very careful with and very deliberate with when you're moving, just because of that frame too. Remember, this is the first time that they were trying out that fully articulated advanced MS joint frame, and so when you're bending the joints, don't just like kind of bend the arm from out here, like hold it like as close to the joint as possible and bend it kind of very slowly and deliberately, especially down here like in the hips and in the knee section as well. And when you're putting the kit together, here's another part that I find pops off a lot, is the skirting armor. But when you're bending the joints, or when you're building the kit, bend the joints, back and forth a few times before you even assemble anything. So as soon as you have just the part off the runner, the advanced MS joint, before adding more parts onto it and building that whole section, bend the advanced MS joint parts back and forth just to loosen them up a bit. Now, it's not going to make them so much that they're so loose that it's going to cause you an issue. It's just going to break the joint in a little bit, so then once you actually have all the parts on there and you're going to pose the kit once you're all done, the joint is loosened up a little bit so that you're not going to run the risk of breaking anything. Now, as you can see, when you're moving stuff around, just the armor separation and everything on this is really incredible, considering what they were able to pack into this kit. And this was the first RG that they came out with, so it was certainly pretty groundbreaking for the time. As you can see, I have more parts just kind of falling off here, the thruster bells on the backpack, the skirt section again. And let's just take a look at some poses here while I'm giving you guys my final thoughts on this. But yeah, just to reiterate, it feels like Bandai just bit off a little bit more than they could chew with this one. It was a little bit too ambitious, a little bit overly engineered for its own good, where the kit looks great and it's packed with details. The armor separation is amazing, so many tiny little pieces on this, and I think that's probably one of the reasons why people have issues with it, is just because you have all these tiny little pieces and the connection is so small on these parts. They're just very prone to falling off, and that's, I think, one of the reasons why a lot of people have had negative experiences with this kit. But like I said, it's the kind of thing, for the most part, stuff that's just fixed with just a tiny bit of glue on parts that you might experience falling off on you. And it also just kind of depends on how much you're going to be messing around with the kit. If you just build the kit, put it into a pose, and then leave it like that, you're probably not going to have any issues at all. The only reason why I'm having parts falling off on me in showing the kit to you guys is because I'm moving all the parts, moving everything around a lot in order to show you guys, the articulation and different poses and things like that. Now, of course, people will make the argument like, why make everything movable if you're not meant to be able to move it around without parts falling off? I get that. But remember, I mean, just considering what this is, considering all the parts and everything that's built into this tiny package of a kit, I mean, it's pretty amazing what Bandai was able to do with this. So you can't fault the kit too badly, I feel like, for being a little bit janky here and there. I think it's really not all that big of an issue. Now, as for the whole early real grade syndrome, I mean, obviously this kit is not as nice as some of the later real grades that we would get, but I feel like if you're gonna say early real grade syndrome is a thing, then there certainly needs to be such a thing as early master grade syndrome, early high grade syndrome, early PG syndrome. Basically, any other older kit is not going to be as nice as newer kits, especially when you're talking about a time span of 10 years or more. In this case, this kit is now 14 years old. And we have a 2.0 coming out on the way. So will the 2.0 be a kit killer? In that, will there be absolutely no reason to pick up this kit anymore once the 2.0 comes out? I don't think so. I think just because of the stylistic and aesthetic differences between the two kits, you might still just prefer the look of this one. And I think the RX-78-2 having so many kind of variations to its design, there's a lot of people that have certain preferences about what they like about any particular RX-78-2 variation over another. And while I think that I'm definitely going to prefer prefer the look of the 2.0 generally, just because in my opinion it looks more closer to like the Kotoki design, which I like a whole lot. I'm sure there's a lot of people who do prefer this version of the design, which is based off of the 1:1 scale Gundam, and also the Master Grade 3.0 also uses the same design, and the Mega Size kit also uses the same design basically. So despite its flaws, this is a kit that I think still has plenty of value for people who might just prefer this particular version of the RX-78-2 design. Now, one other thing I'll say just kind of generally about the construction of it is that I don't particularly like how shallow some of the details are. So there's a lot of details around on this kit, as I've said, all the surface detail on the armor and everything. A lot of the surface detail is very shallow though, so if you are planning on painting and panel lining the kit, it is a kit that you may want to consider to rescribe out some of those details if you also find them to be a little bit shallow. Once you actually go to do your panel lining on the kit, you might find it's just kind of difficult to do, or it might just look better generally if those some of those detail bits are a little bit more refined. But other than that, guys, hope this video has been helpful and informative for y'all. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. What do you think about this kit? I would assume that a lot of you guys have probably built this kit, and a lot of you probably have quite wide-ranging experiences with this. A lot of positive, a lot of negative. For a lot of you guys, it might be a very memorable kit because maybe it was your first real grade, or possibly even your first Gunpla kit ever. Let me know your thoughts, your experiences with this kit down in the comment section. If you guys want to check out this kit or more real grade kits or just Gunpla in general, you can check the link in the video description to USA Gundam store as always. Thank you guys so much for all of your support, leaving a like as well, making sure that you're subscribed. It helps out a great deal. Really appreciate it, guys. I'm glad to be able to take a look at older kits like this from time to time, and I hope that you guys enjoyed it as well. Till next time, guys, have a great day. I'll see y'all later. Bye-bye.